What's going on, guys? PlotArmorCards in the house, and as a Yu-Gi-Oh game, the meta changes and evolves. I love to test some of these decks that I've made other deck profiles for, and based on what I test, I like to change around ratios, like to add in certain cards, like to take out certain cards, and so we come to you again with an updated deck profile for my Shark XYZ deck. That's right. And just an FYI, you guys can run, if you like, Lifeless, or not Lifeless Least Fish, Beautiful Princess. I think it's a decent card. However, in my experience, it's just been an Ash Blossom target, so that's why I am personally not running it. However, that is something that if you would like, you can run in here. I am running 2 copies of Tin Goldfish. I think that works pretty well just because it can special summon from your hand. However, you can switch this out for Beautiful Princess if you like. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So first of all, I like to run 3 copies of Lantern Shark. And Lantern Shark, in my opinion, is really good for this deck. Its effect is, if this card is normal or special summon, you can activate this effect. Special summon 1 level 3, 4, or 5 water monster from your hand in defense position except Lantern Shark. You also cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck for the rest of this turn except XYZ monsters. You can only use the effect of Lantern Shark once per turn. So I think this is really good because being able to search pretty much any level 3, 4, or 5, in this case we're going to be mostly spamming out 4s, that's really good. And it allows you to pop off even more combos. So it's a pretty good extender. Next, I like to run 3 copies of Buzzsaw Shark. Buzzsaw Shark is super good as well. Its effect is you can target 1 water monster you control, special summon from your deck in defense position, 1 fish monster with the same level as that monster, but with a different name. And if you do, it cannot activate its effects this turn. Also, you cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck for the rest of the turn except XYZ monsters, blah. So my favorite thing to do, my favorite combo at least in this deck, is to summon this, normal summon or special summon this, activate its effect, special summon 1 level 4, put my hand in defense position. So going into Buzzsaw Shark. And then we can go use Buzzsaw Shark's effect and then pop off other combos from there. So that's a pretty good combo. And as we'll go on, we'll see more cards, you'll see that you can do pretty much a variety of different things with both these cards. Next, I like to run 2 copies of XYZ Remora. Now, I know some people like to run 3, but I like to run 2, and this is with a reason, because some of the XYZ cards that I have on the field, I like them to have their materials. So this card's effect is you can special summon this card from your hand by detaching 2 XYZ materials from monsters you control. If you do, you can target 2 level 4 fish-type monsters in your graveyard, special summon those targets face-up defense position. So it's really good, because you essentially get 3 monsters, 3 additional bodies on the field, and then you can go ahead and go into additional XYZ monsters. But as we'll see with some of the XYZ monsters going forward, sometimes you want them to have their attachments so they can pop off their effects. So that's why I run 2, but most of the time I think this card is really handy, and I can completely see it being run at 3. Next, I like to run 2 copies of Right Hand Shark and 1 copy of Left Hand Shark. So Right Hand Shark's effect is when this card is normal summon, you can add 1 Left Hand Shark from your deck to your hand. If this card is in your graveyard and you control no monsters, you can special summon this card but banish it when it leaves the field. An XYZ monster that was summoned using only water monsters and material, including this card, gains this effect, can't be destroyed by battle. And Left Hand Shark is if this card is special summoned from the graveyard, its level becomes 4. So I only run 1 just because it's a level 3 and it's a little bit hard just to manipulate it in order to go into level 4, and then you can go into XYZ monsters from there. However, I've had experience with this thing where it's just a dead monster on the field or a dead monster in my hand. So that's why I like to run 2 and 1. In the past, I think I was doing 2 and 3, or it was 3 and 3, or 2 and something along those ratios. But I feel like this is the best ratio for me, at least. Next, I like to run 3 copies of Silent Sea Nettle. Now, this card, in my opinion, is great. Its effect is if you control a water monster, you can special summon this card from your hand. All the monsters in this deck are water monsters. You will have no problem getting this out. You just need to summon any other monster. You can special summon this. All right. You can't special summon water monsters except water monsters the turn you activate this effect. That is not even a downside of this deck because all you got is waters, right? You can banish this card from your graveyard, then target up to 3 water monsters in your graveyard, shuffle them into the deck. Now, if this card is in the grave, which at some point it will be, right? You can banish it from your grave, shuffle 3 waters in, and I think that's pretty good just for extending certain things and being able to keep recycling your grave. Next, I like to run 2 copies of Ice Knight Ice Knight's effect is the one I'm concerned with, at least, is you can normal summon one water monster during your main phase in this turn, in addition to your normal summon set. This card is really, really good, just because in my experience, I've been against a lot of, I think it's called El Shaddol window, the Shaddol fusion monster that stops you from special summoning more than once. This card is essential for being able to get around that. And just being able to normal summon multiple times, I know some cards will stop you from special summoning and whatnot. It does help with that, and it's very, very good. Especially if you have that card in the field, you already know you're getting an Xyz monster off the field, because you're getting two summons essentially already. So next, I like to run 3 copies of Silent Sea Angler. Silent Sea Angler is also a really good card, but you got to be a little bit careful about how you use it. So its effect is if you control a water monster, you can special summon this card from your hand, but you cannot special summon monsters from your hand the rest of this turn. So this card is really good because it lets you special summon itself from your hand, but you have to be very careful that this is the last thing you want to special summon from your hand. There's a lot of monsters in this deck that will special summon from their hand, or will allow you to special summon something else from your hand. You just want to make sure this is the very last thing that you special summon from the hand. Next, I like to run 3 copies of Tanyi Spirit. I don't know how to pronounce that. Shihana. I don't know. All right, we're just gonna call it Tanyi Spirit Water because it's a water one. If you control no effect monsters, you can special summon this card from your hand. That's basically what I'm concerned with. A lot of times, especially going first, if you see this, you already know you're good to go because you're gonna get off a lot of summons because this is a free special summon. Additionally, I've had some experiences where I end up drawing this, and my opponent actually manages to wipe my board or whatever beforehand, so I got nothing on the field. So this is useful. You may want to be a little bit careful of when, let's say you have a monster on the field, right? All your monsters are basically effect monsters. You wouldn't be able to special summon this unless you use something like the aforementioned 10 Goldfish, in which case you can get it on the field pretty easy. Next, I like to run 2 copies of White Stingray. White Stingray is kind of cool. Its effect is you can special summon this card from your hand by discarding 1 water monster. Now, I think I like to use this more with Left Hand Shark. It doesn't happen that often, but there's a lot of water monsters in this deck. A couple of them have graveyard effects, Silent Sea Nettle. I think Left Hand Shark is the one that's level 3, and then I'm trying to remember off the top of my head, but that one, and then you can special summon from a grave, it becomes level 4. So it helps with that, just getting into the grave, But also, when it's special summoned from the grave, it's treated as a tuner. So it has potential for synchro plays. So I'm kind of experimenting with this. I just want to see how reliable it is. Although, since you are bringing it back from the grave, a little bit harder to do in this deck. But if I can make this work, if I can put in like a decent synchro monster in this deck, and we're running level 4, so if I can get a level 8 synchro consistently on the field, I think that'd be pretty cool. Next, I like to run 2 copies of Tin Goldfish. Tin Goldfish, pretty self-explanatory. When this card is normal summon, you can special summon a level 4 monster from your hand. That's literally any of your monsters. You can pop off a lot of different combos using this card. Next, I got one copy of Lifeless Leaffish. When this card is summoned, you can send 1 fish monster from your deck to the graveyard except Lifeless Leaffish. So it's really good for dumping a lot of different cards in the grave. You can go for White Stingray. You can go for Left Hand Shark. Those usually are my primary targets, if I'm being honest. You can banish this card from your graveyard, target 3 monsters in your graveyard, shuffle those monsters into your deck, then draw 1 card. So it's kind of similar to Silent Sea Nettle, but it's fish specific and lets you draw a card. So I think that's pretty good. Lastly, for the monsters. So let me just move that out of the way. Lastly, for the monsters, I like to run 1 copy of Barrier Statue of the Torrent. Now, I think this card is really underrated, just because most decks aren't going to be running waters like that. There are a decent amount. Some decks you'll see, like I think the Adventure Token package runs waters. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. I apologize. But it locks people out of special summoning anything but waters, and you only have water, so you can special summon whatever the hell you please. It's not even a problem. It halts your opponent, definitely. And if they end up having like infinite permanents or something, they have to use it on that card. Your better cards won't be affected. So that's just something to think about. For the spell cards, I like to run 3 copies of White Mirror. White Mirror is really good. You can target 1 level 4 or lower fish monster in your graveyard, special summon it. Then you can add 1 monster from your deck to your hand with the same original name as that special summon monster. You can only activate White Mirror once per turn. So I think it's pretty decent to get out my White Stingray. I think you have to have a second copy for you to use it on Left Hand Shark. So that's something I may be considering, maybe putting in 1 more copy of Left Hand Shark. But I thought about that, and Left Hand Shark kind of has the ability to be dead at 2, so that's why it's limited to 1. But I will maybe be experimenting with different ratios of that nature in the future. Next, I like to run 2 copies of Aquarium Stage. Aquarium Stage is super dope because water monsters you control cannot be destroyed by battle with a non-water monster. So that pretty much gives your entire deck protection. Even if like weaker cards that are negates, I would say, like, let's say I use Totally Awesome in this deck, right? If my Totally Awesome gets attacked, it at least has the protection of being able to stay on the field, and then I can go ahead and negate whatever future thing that I'd like to negate. So it helps really well. It helps a lot. Next I got 2 1-ofs. I got 1 copy of Instant Fusion. Instant Fusion is pretty self-explanatory. You can go into Rare Fish. Rare Fish is just the easy level 4 to go into more XC summons. And then lastly, I like to run 1 copy of Raigeki. Board removal, in my opinion, is super dope. You can, if you really want, switch this out for the next hand trap that I will be mentioning, or the only hand trap technically I run in this deck, because I run 2 copies of that. So you could switch this out if you really wanted to, go for a 3rd copy of a hand trap. But I just think Raigeki is pretty useful. So I like to run 2 copies of Infinite Impermanence. So again, if you don't want that, you could essentially, there's a lot of cards you could switch out, but I would recommend maybe switching out Raigeki, since I do have a board wipe in AA Zeus already. And you don't have to be necessarily using Infinite Impermanence. You can switch these out for Ash Blossom, already know, a Ghost Ogre, whatever you like. So lastly, for the main deck, trap cards. So I like to run 2 copies of Golden Match. This card has the ability to just shut your opponent down. Each player sends monsters they control to the graveyard until they control monsters of only 1 attribute. Each player cannot control monsters with different attributes. So all my attributes are already waters, so I don't even mind. But a lot of the times, like recently, I went up against an Elemental Hero deck. This guy was using every attribute under the sun. It really locks them down, because they can't. A lot of times they can't do much. So I think it's just a super dope card to have. Again, you could, if you really wanted to, switch this out for, whatever hand trap or whatever you'd like to see. That's just up to you, personal preference. And lastly, let's go for the extra deck. So I like to run 2 copies of Bahamut Shark. So where's my second one? There it is. 2 copies of Bahamut Shark. Its effect is it takes 2 level 4 water monsters, so literally anything in your deck can make this, except for Left-Hand Shark, unless it's brought back from the grave. Once per turn, you can detach 1 Xyz material from this card. Special summon 1 rank 3 or lower water Xyz monster from your extra deck. This card cannot attack for the rest of the turn. So, obviously, what you're going to be going into with this card is Totally Awesome. So, I always like to run 2 copies of Totally Awesome. This card is a pretty dope universal negate. The problem is, if you're not running a frog deck, or, oh my god, my voice just cracked. That was terrible. But, if you're not running like frog cards with it, there's very limited aqua cards you can use in this deck. So you could use, I think there's 2 of them, I'm trying to remember, but these are the 2 aqua cards at least. So if you get lucky, you don't have to technically tribute Totally Awesome itself. If you happen to have these on the field, those can be tributed as well. But obviously, if you do tribute Totally Awesome, you could just recycle it to the extra deck. I know some people like to run 3 and 3. Personally, this just isn't in the budget for me to have 3 of these right now. I got these at like $5, now they're like 15, I think, off the top of my head. But it's definitely something worth considering because it's like the best negate in the game. I've had boards where like I have 2 Bahamut Sharks, 2 Totally Awesomes, and then I have something like Barrier Statue of the Torrent, and then I have where did my trap cards go? I have Gozen Match on the field. That's insanely broken, so they can't special summon except water. They're locked into 1 attribute. And then after that, they Totally Awesome will negate 2 times. So I think that's super dope. Next, we are looking at 2 copies of number 4 Stealth Kraken. This also takes 2 level 4 waters. All face-up monsters on the field become water. Once per turn during the main phase, quick effect, you can destroy 1 water monster your opponent controls. And if you do, inflict damage to your opponent equal to half the attack it had on the field. So that's pretty dope. Being able to just destroy whatever you want, quick effect, and they take damage equal to its effect. Plus, if this thing is destroyed, you can special summon Stealth Kraken spawns from your extra deck up to the number of materials this card had. Then you can attach 1 water monster from your grave up to each of those special summon monsters as material. So that's also really good. So the aforementioned Stealth Kraken spawn is being run at 2. This card, once per turn during the main phase, you can destroy one water monster your opponent controls. That's a quick effect, by the way. If this card special summoned by the effective number XC's monster is destroyed, you can special summon one other Stealth Kraken monster from your graveyard. So it's easy to recycle these, you know? It's good protection. On top of that, quick effect destruction is always dope. Moving on, though, I like to run one copy of number 32, Shark Drake. This, honestly, is a little bit... mostly there because I'm trying to think of another card to put here. You honestly could do pretty much anything, but it's definitely something I want to try out just for nostalgia reasons. However, it does take 3 level 4 monsters and it only has 2800 attack. I think it's maybe like the most inefficient card, I would say, extra deck card that I have to make in this, with not as much as of a payoff. So it may be something that I'm considering taking out for the future. Hey, if I was thinking about it, maybe if in the future instant fusion goes to 2. I was watching the Cali effect video. I know he was saying for the recent ban list, but maybe in future ban lists, if instant fusion ends up at 2, that would be super dope because then I can switch this out for another copy of Rare Fish. Other than that, I would love to hear any suggestions that you guys have. Maybe switch this out for anything else. I like to run one copy of number 1, Silent Honor Arc. This is just to remove certain monsters that may be pesky on the field. I like to run one copy of Abyss Dweller. Abyss Dweller is super dope just because it stops your opponent from activating the graveyard effects, so you have potential there just to shut down certain decks. And it's just generic, 2 level 4 monsters. So I've had, like, personally, when I'm running, like, Skull Servants, one of my homies, he always pulls this out because he knows what's about to happen. So he'll negate all graveyard effects, and so I'll kind of be screwed. Definitely can't take advantage of certain decks if the graveyard effects are negated, right? So I also like to run one copy of number 37, Hope Woven Dragon Spider Shark. This thing is super dope. I personally don't pull it out as much as some of the other cards, but when you need it in a pinch, I think it's a pretty decent card to have. Lastly, for the XC's cards, if you're running XC's cards, you already know you got to run Divine Arsenal AA Zeus. This is just self-explanatory. You need this card in any XC's deck you run, pretty much. I also like to run one copy of Rare Fish. That's just for the instant fusion, pay 1,000 life points, summon this on the field, and then that's technically my first summon, right? So then I can normal summon something, pop off other combos, have a bunch of number 4s or rank 4s on the field, level 4, sorry, and then go into a bunch of rank 4s. So always good. And lastly, I like to run one copy of Emancipator Ryzen Dragite. As mentioned before, this thing has potential to be traded as a tuner. So I definitely wanted to try out Emancipator Ryzen Dragite just because it's a super, super dope negate. And as many negates as you can have, you know, in modern meta, it's great. So I definitely wanted to try that out. I might switch this out, though, for just any level 4 water monster, in my opinion. I could switch, honestly, where did it go? Maybe Emancipator Ryzen Dragite and maybe a number 32. I could probably run a third copy of Bahamut Shark and a third copy Totally Awesome. If these two I feel like don't work out as well. But anyways, guys, this is PlotArmorCards signing out for the day. I hope you liked my Shark XC's deck profile. If you like what you saw, please don't hesitate to like, comment, and subscribe. And oh my goodness, look at the time.
It's time to do